The moment someone provokes you, anger rises, words rush forward, the body tightens. Now answer this honestly. Are you reacting or being controlled? Imagine freezing that instant, choosing stillness instead, and watching the situation lose its power over you. Buddhism reveals a truth most people never see. The true power of not reacting is the highest form of control. Your reaction is your burden. Through Buddhist teachings and Buddhist wisdom, you'll learn how to control your emotions, master your emotions, and never react again. Not by suppression, but by clarity. This is how you fear nothing, dissolve anger, and build a success mindset rooted in growth. Before we begin, subscribe to Buddha's Eternal Wisdom, where every video is a doorway to calm, clarity, and timeless Buddhist insight you won't find anywhere else. What if this single shift could change every outcome? Stay. There's a powerful bonus lesson at the end. 1. Power leaves when you react. The moment you react, something quiet but powerful slips out of your hands. You may feel strong in that instant. Your voice rises, your mind races, your heart justifies. But later, when the noise fades, peace is missing. Pause here. Notice this pattern. Why does reacting feel like power, yet always leave regret behind? Reaction is not strength. Reaction is surrender. It is the instant you hand control of your inner world to something outside you. A word, a look, a memory, a tone. What controls you, owns you. And most of us are owned not by people, but by impulses we never questioned. Imagine a warrior who drops his sword because someone insults him. The insult did not defeat him. His reaction did. This is how power leaks from your life. Quietly, repeatedly, each time emotion pulls the strings and you obey without awareness. You thought you were defending yourself, but you were abandoning yourself. The teachings remind us of a simple truth. Reaction is obedience to impulse, not action guided by wisdom. Action is calm. Reaction is rushed. Action chooses. Reaction explodes. And every explosion leaves damage behind, often inside you. Ask yourself gently, when did my last reaction cost me peace? Watch closely the next time a trigger appears. Maybe it is anger, disrespect, fear, or the need to be right. Do nothing, not suppression, not escape, just stillness. Feel it rise in your chest. Let it burn without feeding it. Notice how it peaks and then collapses on its own. This is not weakness. This is mastery. Here is the reversal most people never see. Silence is not losing. Silence is staying sovereign. When nothing inside you rushes outward, nothing outside can command you. This is why calm people feel powerful. They are not pulled, they are rooted. They do not react. They respond only when needed. Look back honestly. Who benefited from your reaction, you or them? Did it bring clarity or did it scatter your energy? And if you had chosen stillness instead, what would have changed in that moment and inside your future? Life begins to soften when you stop fighting shadows. Situations lose their grip when they cannot provoke you. This is the quiet discipline that builds an unshakable mind. Practice this daily, one pause, one breath, one moment of non-reaction, because the moment you stop reacting, you reclaim the authority you unknowingly gave away, and life, sensing your stillness, begins to obey. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My calm is power." 2. Your emotion is not you. An emotion rises and instantly says, "This is me." Anger claims your voice, fear borrows your breath, sadness wears your face, and because it feels so real, you obey it without question. But pause here. If emotions are truly you, why do they come and go, And if they leave, who remains behind to notice their absence? The teachings point to a quiet reversal. You are not what you feel, you are what notices feeling. Everything observed cannot be the observer. When anger appears, something in you knows. Anger is here. That knowing is not angry. When fear tightens your chest, something else watches it tighten. That watcher is untouched. The sky is not harmed by passing storms. Clouds shout, but the sky never answers. This is your inner structure. Thoughts accuse, emotions demand, memories pull, but the awareness holding them remains still. Suffering begins the moment you forget this and step inside the cloud, calling it your identity. Peace returns the moment you step back into the sky. Sit quietly for a moment and imagine your mind as a river. Thoughts float by. Images, judgments, worries, urges. Do not fight them. Do not follow them. Simply label them. Passing. A thought arises. Passing. An emotion swells. Passing. Watch how nothing stays when you stop gripping. This is not detachment from life. This is intimacy without possession. Ask yourself honestly, what emotion have I been calling myself? The angry one, the anxious one, the broken one, the unlovable one. Who taught you that this label was permanent? And without it, who are you right now before the story continues? Here is the hidden shift. The moment you stop identifying, emotion loses its authority. It can visit, but it cannot rule. It can speak, but it cannot command. You do not suppress it. You simply refuse to become it. This is why mastery feels quiet. Nothing inside needs to prove itself. When you no longer say, I am angry, and instead see anger is present, space opens. In that space, choice returns, calm returns, dignity returns. And in that stillness, something unshaken remains, watching, breathing whole. That is who you have always been. 3. Anger makes you smaller. Anger arrives fast, loud and convincing. It tells you to act now, speak now, decide now. And in that heat, even intelligent people make choices they later cannot recognize. Pause and look closely. Why does wisdom disappear the moment anger enters? Because anger does not only burn, it shrinks. It narrows the field of vision until you can no longer see consequences, nuance, or other paths. Fire first consumes the house it lives in. Before anger harms anyone else, it reduces you. Your clarity, your patience, your ability to choose well. Think of fog thickening just before a crash. The road did not vanish, your perception did. Anger works the same way. It convinces you that only one response exists. It blocks empathy. It silences memory. It makes the future invisible. This is why regret always arrives after the fire, not during it. Recall the last time anger took over. Notice the body first. The jaw tightens, the chest hardens, the breath shortens, the eyes narrow. In that state, were you truly seeing, or were you defending an image of yourself? Was this about solving the situation or protecting pride, control, or wounded identity? The teachings never ask you to deny anger. They ask you to understand its cost. Anger borrows energy from tomorrow to feel powerful today. It promises relief, but leaves damage behind. Inside relationships, inside the mind, inside the story you tell yourself about who you are. Ask honestly, what did anger take from me last time? Here is the quieter truth. Strength expands awareness. Anger contracts it. A calm mind can hold complexity. An angry mind demands simplicity. Enemy, blame, attack. This is why calm always feels slower, but arrives wiser. When perception widens, intelligence returns. The practice is not heroic, it is humble. The moment anger rises, delay the body. Do not speak, do not type, do not decide. Let the wave peak without movement. Feel how it strains to control you and how powerless it becomes when you refuse to obey. Ask yourself in that pause, did anger ever truly solve the problem, or did it multiply it? Who was I trying to protect in that moment, the truth or my ego? When anger no longer drives, life responds differently. Situations soften, words land gently. Respect replaces fear. You do not lose power, you reclaim it. Because the moment anger stops making you smaller, your mind becomes wide enough for life to move with you, not against you. 4. Pause is the hidden power. Life rarely collapses in one loud moment. It turns quietly in seconds, so small you barely notice them. A word almost spoken, a message almost sent, a decision made in haste. And later you wonder how everything shifted so suddenly. How can 1 second alter an entire outcome? Because the pause interrupts unconscious momentum. Most reactions are not chosen. They are inherited from habit, memory, and fear. They rush forward like a body already falling. The pause is the only moment where gravity loosens its grip. Between impulse and action lives freedom. Think of a door gently closing before the storm enters. The storm still exists. The wind still howls, but inside, something remains untouched. This is the role of the pause. It does not fight the storm. It prevents it from taking residence in your life. The body always knows before the mind. Shoulders tighten. Breath shortens. The urge to act demands obedience. This is where the practice begins, not later, not after regret. Right here. Inhale slowly for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Feel how the body softens before the story changes. In that brief stillness, perception widens. Alternatives appear. You see what was invisible seconds ago. The words you were about to say lose their urgency. The action you were about to take reveals its consequence. This is not delay out of fear. This is delay born of intelligence. Ask yourself gently, where could a pause save me today? In conversation, in conflict, in self-judgment. What would happen if I delayed reaction by 10 seconds? Not to suppress, but to see clearly. Who do I become in that space when nothing pushes me? Here is the turning point few recognize. Fate does not change through force. It changes through interruption. One pause breaks a lifelong pattern. One breath dissolves years of habit. This is why the smallest discipline carries the greatest power. When you pause, life begins to cooperate. People respond differently. Situations soften. Even your own thoughts slow their attack. You stop feeding what weakens you. You start choosing what strengthens you. Practice this today, not perfectly, repeatedly. 1 breath before 1 response. Let the pause stand between you and your old reflex. Because in that quiet gap, you do not just change the moment, you change the direction of your life. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My calm is power." 5. Naming dissolves emotion. An emotion rises and immediately demands identity. It says, "This is me. Act now." The body tightens, the mind clouds, and the feeling grows louder simply because it is unnamed. Ask yourself quietly, why does something soften the moment it is seen clearly? Because awareness weakens force. What remains unconscious feels overwhelming. What is seen becomes workable. The moment you name an emotion, you step out of it. Clarity breaks identification. Light ends darkness without effort. You did not fight the dark. You simply saw. Most suffering survives by being vague. A restless ache becomes a story. A sharp fear becomes a future. But when you name it, fear, anger, jealousy, shame, it loses its disguise. Like calling a shadow by name, it shrinks. Not because you judged it, but because you recognized it. Sit with yourself and notice what is present right now. Say it softly, without drama. This is anger. This is fear. This is sadness. Feel how the body responds. The emotion is still there, but it no longer fills the room. Space appears around it. You are no longer trapped inside the feeling. This is the hidden power. Naming is not suppression. It is intimacy without fusion. You allow the emotion to exist, but you refuse to become it. The mind relaxes because it no longer has to defend an unnamed threat. Awareness steadies what resistance could never calm. Ask yourself gently, can I name what I feel without judging it? No fixing, no blaming, just honesty. When you stop arguing with your inner weather, it passes more quickly. Emotions linger only when they are misunderstood. Notice which emotion repeats most in your life. The familiar one that returns again and again. Do not rush past it. What is it protecting? Control, safety, recognition. Every emotion believes it is saving you. When you name it, you hear its message without obeying its command. Here is the quiet reversal. What you can name, you can choose. Once clarity arrives, reaction weakens. You no longer explode or collapse. You respond with precision. Life feels lighter because you are no longer carrying unnamed weight. Practice this daily, especially in small moments. A pause, a breath, a simple label. Let awareness do the work, because when emotions are seen clearly, they stop ruling silently, and the mind returns to its natural state, calm, spacious, and free. 6. Stop feeding the reaction. An emotion does not survive on its own. It needs fuel. The moment it appears, attention rushes toward it, thinking about it, replaying it, explaining it, justifying it. And hours later, you wonder why it never left. Ask yourself quietly, why do some emotions linger long after the situation is gone? Because attention is fuel. Every time you revisit the feeling, it strengthens. Every inner conversation feeds it. What you resist persists. What you feed grows. You may believe you are processing the emotion, but often you are only rehearsing it. Think of throwing wood into a dying fire. The flame flares, not because the fire was strong, but because you kept feeding it. Emotions work the same way. Anger fades quickly unless you replay the insult. Fear dissolves unless you imagine outcomes. Pain softens unless you retell the story. Notice how this happens in the body. A reaction arises. The mind leans forward. It wants resolution, justice, explanation. But leaning forward is feeding. The practice is subtle and radical. Withdraw attention, not by force, not by distraction, simply by turning away from the noise. Visualize it clearly. An inner voice shouts for reaction. Instead of answering, you look elsewhere, into the breath, into sensation, into stillness. Like turning your head away from a loud argument, the sound continues for a moment, then weakens. Without an audience, emotion loses urgency. This is where most people misunderstand calm. Calm is not achieved by defeating emotion. Calm appears when you stop nourishing what disturbs you. You do not argue with the mind. You do not negotiate with the feeling. You simply stop feeding it. Ask yourself honestly, what emotion do I unconsciously feed? The resentment you replay, the worry you keep checking, the self-criticism you return to like a habit. What would happen if you starved it of attention? Not forever, just for this moment. Here is the turning point. When attention withdraws, something replaces the emotion: space, breath, sensation, presence. The mind begins to settle because it is no longer overstimulated by its own commentary. Energy returns to the body. Clarity returns to perception. This is not avoidance. You still acknowledge what arises, but you refuse to water what you do not want to grow. Attention becomes intentional, not reactive. Practice this gently today. When an emotion appears, notice where your attention goes. Choose differently. Turn toward what is stable. Let the feeling pass without commentary, because when you stop feeding reactions, they starve quietly. And in that quiet, life finds you easier to move with, easier to guide, easier to obey. 7. Channel, don't suppress. An emotion rises, and the mind immediately asks the wrong question. Should I stop this? This is where confusion begins. Non-reaction is often mistaken for suppression, and suppression feels heavy, tense, unnatural. So ask honestly, if I don't react, am I trapping something inside? No. Suppression traps energy. Channeling frees it. Energy must move. When it has no path, it turns inward and corrodes the body and mind. Water becomes dangerous only when blocked. The teaching is not to dam the river, but to guide it. Look closely at your own experience. When you suppress anger, the jaw tightens, the chest hardens, the body holds the weight. But when you channel it, something releases. Breath deepens, muscles soften, clarity returns. The difference is not emotional, it is physical. Picture a river redirected through open land instead of blocked by concrete. It still flows, it still carries force, but it nourishes instead of destroying. This is what skillful awareness does with emotion. You do not deny its existence, you give it a clean exit. The body already knows how. When intensity rises, move. Walk slowly, stretch the spine. Breathe deeply into the belly. Let sound leave the throat without words. Let energy exit through motion instead of speech. This is not escape. It is intelligence. Ask yourself gently, where does this emotion need to go? Not who caused it, not how to justify it. Where does it want to move? Through breath, through still movement, through quiet action. When energy finds a path, it stops demanding attention. Here is the mistake many make. They try to stay still while energy is flooding the system. Stillness without flow becomes pressure. Flow without awareness becomes chaos. The middle path is conscious release, present, grounded, contained. How can you express without exploding? By choosing a form that does not harm, writing instead of shouting, walking instead of pacing mentally, breathing instead of arguing. A healthy outlet is not dramatic, it is steady. What healthy outlet have you been avoiding because it doesn't satisfy the ego? When emotion is channeled, it transforms. Anger becomes clarity. Fear becomes alertness. Restlessness becomes movement. Nothing is wasted. This is why the wise do not fear strong emotions. They know how to guide them. Practice this today. The next time energy rises, do not clamp down and do not lash out. Redirect, move the body, deepen the breath. Let the force exit cleanly. Because when energy is allowed to move with awareness, reaction dissolves naturally, and life responds not to tension, but to balance. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My calm is power." 8. Chemical chains of emotion. A reaction does not only feel emotional, it feels chemical. The body lights up, the heart speeds, the mind sharpens. There is a strange energy in it, almost pleasure. And later, you wonder why calm feels dull, unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Why do reactions feel addictive? Because you are being conditioned. The nervous system learns through reward. Emotional drama releases stimulation, dopamine, adrenaline, intensity. The body remembers this surge and asks for it again. The mind repeats what it is rewarded for. This is not weakness. This is biology running without awareness. Like a bell ringing and the body salivating, certain triggers now produce automatic reactions. A tone of voice, a message, a memory. Before thought appears, chemistry has already decided. You think you are choosing, but the body is chasing a familiar feeling. Notice this carefully. Some emotions give a chemical hit. Righteous anger, urgent worry, emotional pain mixed with meaning. These states feel alive. Calm, by contrast, feels quiet. And because it does not spike chemistry, the mind labels it as empty or boring. This is the trap. Chaos feels rewarding because it is familiar, not because it is true. The nervous system was trained by childhood environments, social patterns, constant stimulation to equate intensity with safety and control. Ask yourself honestly, who taught my body this rhythm? Sit still and observe a moment of calm. No story, no reaction, just breath and presence. At first, the mind resists. It looks for stimulation. It wants movement. But if you stay, something subtle emerges. Ease, spaciousness, steadiness. This is a different reward, one the body forgot how to recognize. Here is the turning point. Peace can become rewarding too, but only through repetition. When you pause instead of react, the chemical loop weakens. When you choose stillness, new pathways form. Calm begins to feel safe. Silence begins to feel nourishing. Notice pleasure in calm, not chaos. Notice the softness in the breath, the absence of tension, the quiet intelligence returning. This is not flatness. This is depth without noise. The body slowly learns that it does not need drama to feel alive. Ask yourself gently, what emotion do I keep returning to for stimulation? Conflict, anxiety, self-criticism. What payoff does it offer? And what would happen if peace became my new reward? Not through force, but through familiarity. This is how reactions lose their grip. Not by moral effort, but by rewiring attention and reward. When calm is practiced, it becomes satisfying. When stillness is repeated, it becomes home. And when the body no longer craves chaos, life stops needing to shout to get your attention. 9. Stillness rewrites respect. Stillness changes how the world meets you, not through force, not through words, but through presence. Notice it carefully. Why are calm people rarely challenged twice? Why does conflict seem to stop at their edge? Because calm commands power. Stillness signals self-mastery. Noise seeks attention. Silence commands it. When you do not rush to defend, explain, or react, something ancient in others recognizes strength, not dominance, stability. Picture a mountain. Storms shout, winds threaten. Weather changes moods, the mountain does not respond, and because it does not respond, the storm passes without victory. This is how stillness rewrites respect. The world senses what cannot be moved. Sit upright. Let the spine rise naturally. Relax the face. Lower the breath into the body. Nothing about this posture is aggressive, yet everything about it communicates grounding. Your nervous system settles, and others unconsciously adjust to that frequency. People test what feels unstable. They push where there is tension. When your energy is calm, there is nothing to hook into. Words lose their power. Provocations fall flat. not because you ignored them, but because they found no entry point. Reflect on your own life. How do people treat you when you stay calm? Conversations slow. Respect increases. Boundaries are felt without being spoken. You are no longer negotiating your worth through reaction. Here is the unseen truth. Stillness is a language. It says, I am not available for chaos. It says, I know myself. This is why calm people lead without effort. They do not convince, they emanate. Ask yourself, what does my energy communicate before I speak? Anxiety invites control. Anger invites conflict. Calm invites cooperation. The world responds not to what you say, but to what you embody. This is not a performance. It is a practice. Sit still even when emotion stirs. Breathe low even when the moment pressures you. Let the body learn safety in presence. Over time, this becomes your default state. And when stillness becomes permanent, not rigid, not cold, but alive and aware, you change roles in every interaction. You are no longer reacting to life. Life begins adjusting to you. Who would you become if this was how you lived every day? Not once, not occasionally, but as your natural posture in the world. Because the moment stillness becomes who you are, respect follows quietly, and life, recognizing self-mastery, learns how to meet you. 10. Create your inner mantra. A reaction does not begin with action. It begins with a word inside you. A phrase repeats so fast you barely notice it. I must respond. I can't let this go. This isn't fair. And before awareness arrives, habit has already decided. So ask quietly, how do masters stop reactions instantly? They install a phrase deeper than impulse. One sentence repeated until it becomes automatic. Repeat truth until it replaces impulse. When the inner language changes, behavior follows. Not through effort, but through interruption. Think of a bell that rings just before a fall. It does not stop gravity by force. It warns you early enough to regain balance. An inner mantra works the same way. It sounds before the reaction takes over. It creates a pause where none existed before. Most people rely on willpower in emotional moments. That fails because willpower arrives late. A mantra arrives first. It speaks when the body tenses, when breath shortens, when the urge to react begins forming. It does not argue, it reminds. Choose a phrase that feels steady, not dramatic. Few words, calm words, words that point you back to awareness. Pause and breathe. This will pass. Stay here. Choose calm. Let it be simple enough to surface under pressure. Now, imagine a familiar trigger. The body tightens. The mind prepares its defense. Instead of following the urge, you repeat the phrase slowly inside. Once, twice, 3 times. Feel how the nervous system responds before thought catches up. The wave weakens. Space appears. This is not positive thinking. It is conditioning in reverse. You are teaching the mind a new reflex. Over time, the mantra replaces the old reaction automatically. The bell rings. You step back. Habit dissolves. Ask yourself honestly, what words calm me instantly? Not excite me, not justify me, but ground me. Words that feel true, even in discomfort. Words that return you to the body, not the story. Decide now when you will use them. In conflict, in criticism, in temptation, in self-judgment. The power is not in knowing the phrase, it is repetition. Practice it when calm, so it appears when tested. Here is the quiet promise of this discipline. One phrase, used consistently, can undo years of unconscious reaction. You stop negotiating with impulse, you interrupt it. Commit to this practice, not perfectly, persistently. Let the phrase become your inner anchor. Because when truth repeats often enough, impulse loses authority, and life, meeting a mind that no longer reacts blindly, begins to move in harmony with you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My calm is power." 11. Breath is the master switch. A reaction begins before thought, before words, before choice. It begins with breath. The moment pressure enters, the breath tightens, shortens, rises into the chest, and the mind follows instantly. So ask yourself quietly, why does breath change everything? Because breath speaks directly to the nervous system. Thought must convince, breath commands. Control the breath, and the mind follows. Long before logic arrives, the body has already decided whether to fight, flee, or soften. Imagine reins guiding a wild horse. You do not argue with the horse. You guide it gently, steadily. Breath works the same way. When the breath is rushed, the mind jumps. When the breath slows, the mind settles without effort. Notice your breath under stress. It becomes shallow, tight, almost unseen. In that state, clarity is impossible. The body senses danger even when none is there. Every reaction that follows is shaped by this false signal. Now reverse it. Lengthen the exhale. Let it be slow, relaxed, longer than the inhale. Soften the belly. Feel the shoulders drop. With each exhale, the nervous system gets a message. You are safe. And when safety returns, intelligence wakes up. This is why breath is the master switch. You do not need to manage emotion directly. You guide the breath, and emotion reorganizes itself. Anger loses its sharpness. Fear softens. Urgency melts into presence. Try this now in imagination. A trigger appears. Instead of reacting, you breathe out slowly. Once, twice, 3 times. Notice how the urge weakens before you even think about it. The reaction was never as solid as it seemed. It was carried by breath. Ask yourself honestly, how shallow is my breath when I feel challenged? How often do I try to think my way out of a body reaction? What changes the moment I slow the breath instead? Here is the deeper truth. Breath is always available. You do not need silence, space, or preparation. In a conversation, in conflict, in chaos, one long exhale can interrupt a lifetime of habit. Make this your first response. Not words, not action. Breath, before you explain, before you defend, before you decide. Let the body settle first, and the right response will arrive naturally. This is not a trick to remember later. It is a discipline to live now. Each calm breath reshapes how you meet the world. Each slow exhale trains the mind towards steadiness. And when breath leads instead of impulse, reactions lose their hold, because life cannot control a mind that knows how to breathe. Bonus: the untouchable state. There comes a point where reaction no longer feels needed, not because life becomes soft, but because there is nothing left inside that needs protection. Pause with this question. What happens when there is nothing to protect? Most reactions are not about the present moment. They are about guarding an image of being right, respected, safe, or seen. The body tightens to protect this image. The mind rushes to keep it intact. But when you look closely, what is being protected is weak because it is imagined. When nothing clings, nothing can disturb. Fear lives only where attachment exists. The moment you stop gripping identity, reaction loses its purpose. There is no center to attack, no story to threaten. What remains is simple presence. Imagine a flame untouched by wind. Not because the wind stopped, but because the flame is already still. The world keeps moving. Opinions blow, situations change. Yet inside, there is no leaning forward, no pulling back. This is the untouchable state. Rest as awareness for a moment. No resistance, no agreement, no pushing away. Sensations arise and pass. Thoughts come and go. You do not interfere. You do not fix the moment. You simply remain. In this resting, notice how effort falls away. Ask yourself honestly, what am I still defending? An old wound, a reputation, a role I have outgrown. Every defense carries tension, every protection needs effort. What if you let it go, not to lose yourself, but to finally meet yourself? Here is the quiet truth. When there is nothing to defend, there is nothing to react from. Silence becomes natural. Calm is no longer practiced. It is revealed. You stop bracing for impact because there is no wall left inside you. In this state, freedom is not dramatic. It is simple. Conversations lose their edge. Triggers lose their charge. Life touches you, but does not hook you. You are open without being vulnerable to harm. Who would you be if this became familiar? Not numb, not passive. Clear, responsive, whole. The world may still test you, but it will find no resistance to push against. This is not an escape from life. It is full engagement without fear. You move, speak, act, without the weight of self-protection. And when nothing inside you needs guarding, reaction ends naturally. What remains is quiet authority, steady freedom, and a life that no longer needs control, because it has nothing left to threaten. Quick summary of the principles: power leaves. When you react, reacting feels like strength, but it is actually giving in. Every reaction hands control of your inner world to outside events. The calmer you stay, the less power others have over you. True authority begins the moment reaction ends. Your emotion is not you. Emotions arise, shift, and fade, but awareness remains. What you observe cannot be your true self. Identification with emotion creates suffering. Disidentification creates freedom. Anger makes you smaller. Anger narrows perception and weakens judgment. It lowers intelligence at the exact moment clarity is needed. Nothing wise is chosen in emotional heat. Calm restores perspective and dignity. Pause is the hidden power. The pause breaks unconscious behavior. One moment of stillness prevents years of regret. Freedom exists between impulse and response. That space is where mastery lives. Naming dissolves emotion. Unseen emotions control behavior. Named emotions lose power. Awareness transforms reaction into observation. Clarity weakens emotional pull. Stop feeding the reaction. Attention sustains emotion. What you stop feeding begins to fade. Reactions live on mental repetition. Silence starves unnecessary suffering. Channel, don't suppress. Suppression traps emotion in the body. Mastery allows emotion to pass without expression or resistance. Energy moves cleanly when awareness is present. Freedom comes from allowing, not exploding. Chemical chains of emotion. The nervous system learns emotional patterns. Drama is often chemically rewarded. Calm must be trained to feel natural. Peace becomes stable through repetition. Stillness rewires. Respect. Calm presence changes how others respond to you. Stillness communicates confidence without words. Emotionally steady people are harder to control. Respect follows self-mastery. Create your inner mantra. The mind follows what it hears repeatedly. A single phrase can stop emotional momentum. Preparation replaces regret. Consistency builds inner discipline. Breath is the master switch. Breath directly regulates the nervous system. Slower breathing dissolves emotional urgency. The body calms before the mind understands. Breath restores control instantly. Bonus, the untouchable state. Nothing disturbs what does not cling. When there is nothing to defend, fear fades. Non-reaction is not weakness, it is completion. This is emotional freedom. The strongest person is not the one who reacts fastest, but the one who sees clearly and remains steady. When reactions stop, inner chaos fades and life begins to align. Peace is not created by controlling the world, but by mastering the self. Inspiring. Master yourself and the world loses its hold on you. Zen philosophy teaches that still water reflects truth without distortion. So tonight, ask yourself quietly, what would change if I stopped reacting and started understanding? If this wisdom resonated with you, like and share this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Buddha's Eternal Wisdom for more powerful Buddhist insights on living a peaceful, centered life.